The Vatican is shooting big bucks to target sex abuse, but is it completely missing the mark? Joining us with news and analysis, Church Militant Rome correspondent, Dr. Jules Gomes. Jules, what's the Vatican throwing money at now?
Brad, the Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors, which has had a disastrous month, if not a whole 6 months of terrible publicity, is throwing 3 million euros at what it calls an attempt to improve its image and do something to protect people who are being abused by priests.
Can you give us a deeper look into this this program that they're throwing 3 million euros at?
I was able to obtain 5 pages of the brochure, if you can call it that, for this program. It was in English, interestingly, not in Italian, because I suspect it's aimed largely at the third world, which seems to need this money. But the document was peppered with management speak. For example, it talks about capacity building initiatives at least 5 times, listening and learning, and then it talks about needs assessment, better practice, and the typical management mumbo jumbo. But what it seems to be seeking to do is to provide a formation in terms of what we in the European world would call safeguarding.
So is it being billed as somewhat of a training program, and who is it trying to protect or safeguard?
It is aimed at providing training, presumably to priests, lay leaders, the people in formation, etc. But what it's going to do, Brad, is it's going to create a massive bureaucracy. And we know this because this experiment has been tried in other denominations. For example, the Church of England, even though other denominations do not have such a major problem with clerical sex abuse. And all it has ended up doing is creating a monumental bureaucracy with tons of paperwork and, interestingly enough, labeling everybody as a potential sex abuser.
Okay, well, before moving on, Jules, the Vatican claims incessantly to be broke. Even as late as last week, the Cardinal coming out with the same jargon. So where is the Vatican getting the millions needed to fund this program?
Again, last week, Cardinal Ovídio Scherer of Brazil said that every year the Vatican is in the red. But the 3 million euros is 2.5 million of the 3 million euros is coming from the Italian Episcopal Conference. Now, they have tons of money. Where are they getting that money from? They're getting that money from us, because we are required to pay a certain amount of tax every year compulsorily that goes in the most to the Italian bishops, to the church, the Catholic Church in Italy. And this money is being spent on this safeguarding training program.
Well, again, Jules, who actually is being safeguarded here? What's their intent? Who are they trying to safeguard?
The label, of course, is minors, by which I suspect they mean children. But as we know, the majority of victims are not particularly children, which is why we at Church Militant tend not to use the word pedophile priest, but we prefer to use the word pederast, because many of these victims are seminarians, altar boys, males who have crossed puberty and who are being assaulted and abused by homosexual priests in the main.
So You were mentioning a lot of bad publicity from this Council on the Abuse of Minors. The main question, Jules, do you think this so-called training program the Vatican's rolling out now will actually work to stamp out clerical sex abuse?
That's very doubtful, because as I said, what it is going to do, it will succeed in creating a massive bureaucracy. It will succeed in creating an atmosphere of suspicion across the board. But what it will not do is protect victims. Because the bureaucracy and training for people who are not sex abusers is hardly going to prevent perpetrators from continuing to abuse.
Well, I mean, you have Hans Zollner and others who have walked away from the council. What is their take on what the issue is? It's not just a matter of training here. They have deeper issues, right?
Brad, absolutely, because that's why Hans Zollner, the Jesuit, who is the star on this Pontifical Commission, resigned, last month, and he basically said that the commission was not fit for purpose. He was very strong. He also went on to say that the Vatican offices were continually tripping up the steps that the Commission was attempting to take. His resignation caused a huge degree of embarrassment because he went public on Twitter with it, and the cardinal who is in charge of this commission, he was so embarrassed. O'Malley, exactly, that he had to respond and defend what the commission was doing. But then the commission has had a history of disasters, because we had Peter Saunders, the Englishman, who resigned, and later we discovered that he himself had abused, was having sex with a prostitute in an English toilet. And then you had the Irishwoman, Marie Collins, who was abused herself as a child, that she resigned, again, echoing what Zollner said, that the commission isn't fit for purpose.
Let's take a look at the church, the Catholic Church in the Western Hemisphere. As you noted, Jules, there's a homosexual problem here, preying on, where the John Jay report comes out and says 8 in 10 or more sex abusers are homosexual clerics, according to the John Jay report. And what the target there is seminarians, young men who've reached the age of puberty. This seems like the problem would be stop ordaining homosexual men would cause a correction in the West. Does this program address that at all?
It totally fails to address the root causes of why sexual abuse is being perpetrated either by, on males or on females. And that is perhaps the biggest, that is perhaps the Achilles heel of this 3 million thing being spent. Nothing is being done to address the root cause, Brad.
And then let's shift to the church, the Catholic Church in the Eastern Hemisphere, in Africa, in India. How's the Vatican's program that's supposed to protect minors going to stop clerical sex abuse there?
Well, again, that's a very good question, because in Africa, it is young girls who have just crossed puberty who are being abused by priests, who are being impregnated. There's a huge problem of babies being aborted, or priests then just breaking their vow of celibacy or their promises of celibacy and going on to live with these women. In Africa, the problem is endemic. We've pointed this out numerous times. Because there is simply no understanding of celibacy there. On the contrary, it's a good thing to have a woman, even better if you can have more than one woman. And there are entire dioceses, I've said this a number of times, where the Vatican can't find a single priest to elevate to the episcopate because all of them have children. In India, in Asia, the problem is the same. We know that some of the abuse is perpetrated on nuns, religious sisters. A lot of that is consensual, we must say. But again, this is a wider problem, Brad, that is engulfing the Catholic priesthood, and it is the big elephant in the room.
So if this program is doomed to fail in the East and in the West, why is Francis throwing all these big bucks at it?
Because he has made a zero-tolerance policy on sex abuse, clerical sex abuse, the most important, the hallmark of his pontificate. And he thinks that this is a legacy that he will leave to history. But from what we know of how he has dealt with the Father Marco Ivan Rupnik scandal, the priest Jesuit who abused 25 nuns, this is probably going to be the biggest black mark on his pontificate.
Yeah, so even Francis, zero tolerance, really. I mean, he's a little higher than zero in that area of tolerance. I mean, with Zenchetta and some of these other creepy crawlies that
Maratiaga, yes.
Well, clerical sex abuse of young laymen and seminarians remains to be the issue within the church, and women in being abused in the East. Unfortunately, the Vatican is spending big bucks to seemingly deflect from those issues and rather than solve them. Jules, thank you very much for your spot-on reporting today and your keen insights.
Thank you, Brad.